She sat in the corner of the room, in a wheelchair hidden in the shadows. Everyone thought she had given up. He stood on stage, glowing, holding his pregnant mistress like he'd won. But he had no idea what she was building. And when she stood up, everything he had came crashing down. This is the Betrayal channel. Here we tell stories that are usually hidden, stories where the truth is too personal and the wounds are too fresh. Betrayal is rarely sudden. Write to our channel, leave a comment, what you think is important to us. 3 years ago, Anna and Richard Carlson were the kind of couple you see in architecture magazines. Not because of big smiles or flashy gestures, but because of the quiet harmony they gave off. Precise, balanced, deliberate, like a well-designed project. They met in their final year of architecture school in Montreal. He was the charismatic scholarship student, full of wild ideas and bold sketches that barely held together. She was the quiet perfectionist, raised in an engineer's family, strict with herself and everyone who preferred guessing over actual math. He came up to her after a lecture and showed her a model of a tower. Impressive, but clearly unstable. She didn't even look up. "Your tower would collapse in the first strong wind," she said. He laughed and asked her out for coffee. She said yes. Not for the flirting, for the structure. That's how it began. Their relationship was built like a building. First the sketch, then the calculations, then the tested materials. Together they created architecture people wrote about. He sold the dream, she turned it into blueprints. He was the face, she was the core. Anna worked with millimeter precision. She stayed up late fixing others' mistakes. Students brought her coffee, too nervous to ask questions twice. She had high standards, not for others, but for herself. Meanwhile, Richard gave interviews, met with investors, charmed developers, and lunched with mayors. He knew how to enter a room and make it pause, how to speak in a way that made people feel safe. Richard was a magician, said Claire, one of Anna's former colleagues. But his magic meant nothing without her formula. Their house in West Vancouver was a metaphor for their marriage. A glass villa on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. Symmetry, light, scale, everything under control. Panoramic windows, polished concrete, warm minimalism, a home you could breathe in. But now Anna remembered something else. In that house, echoes carried too well. They used to host Sunday brunches, bake fresh bread, open wine, invite their colleagues. Richard made the toast. Anna smiled, just barely. Everyone admired their harmony, even those who didn't believe in love, especially those. "They look like they belong on a magazine cover," she once heard someone whisper in the hallway. Just too quiet. And it was true. There was often silence between them, but it used to feel like trust, like words weren't needed. Lately, the silence had started to shift. Richard stayed later at work, stopped asking about her designs. He still kissed her goodnight, but without pause, without looking. Small things. But in architecture, it's the small things that signal the shift. The hairline fracture in the wall. Invisible, but dangerous. One evening, she came home early. The house was still, only the ticking kitchen clock and the low hum of the heated floor. She walked into the office. His phone was on the desk. The screen lit up. A woman's name. No message, just a heart emoji. She didn't touch it, didn't even blink. Next to it stood their wedding photo in a silver frame, that black and white one, where he's looking at her like she's the center of gravity. Anna looked from the photo, to the phone, to the clock, and she understood something. Architecture is all about control, but control can be an illusion. That night she didn't sleep. He came home late, said he'd been in a meeting, kissed her on the temple, asked how her day was. She always checked everything herself. There were assistants, engineers, contractors. But the platform on the 14th floor? That one she needed to see with her own eyes. Early morning, before the smell of cigarettes or welding, the sky hung low. November in Vancouver. The cranes creaked like old men. Anna climbed the temporary staircase in a step-by-step, steady, helmet on, safety vest, tablet in hand. She had everything. Calculations, cross-sections, tolerances. She wasn't the kind of woman who took someone's word for it. She was the one who double-checked. The platform looked solid, seemed fine, but as she stepped closer to the edge, something clicked. One sharp sound, metallic, tight, like the snap of a trigger. Then another, and a third, lower. She froze. Someone shouted, "Ma'am, don't go any further!" Too late. Half a second. The beam beneath her left foot bent, as if giving up. She felt the ground disappear. Her body turned light, falling into nothing. The platform split diagonally, like fabric tearing. And then, the fall. Not like in the movies. No sound, no music, just air slamming against her face, walls flashing past, and pain, sharp, in her back, her chest. Hitting the concrete felt like a scream from the inside. Darkness didn't come right away. First silence, then a pop in her ears, then nothing. She woke up in white, light pressing on her eyes. Ceiling, plastic tiles. The smell, sharp. Plastic, hospital soap, heavy air, monitors nearby. Something beeping. Her body wasn't hers. Her arms wouldn't move. Her legs, she couldn't feel them. Not the weight, not the pain, just emptiness, as if everything below the waist had vanished. "Anna," a voice. She turned her head. It was him, Richard, sitting by the window, shirt perfectly ironed, not sweating, not panicked. Fingers on the armrest. He stood, walked over, his face focused, but not broken. "You're here," she whispered. He nodded quickly, almost like a business gesture. And in that moment, she knew. He was afraid, but not for her, for himself. He sat nearby, but didn't come close, as if something stood between them. Not a machine, not the fourth, something invisible. His hand hovered in the air, then lightly touched her wrist, barely, carefully, as if she were porcelain. She waited for words, for explanations, for anything. But he stayed silent, stared at the wall, or into himself. That silence was louder than every siren she'd ever heard. One thought pulsed through her mind. This isn't a dream. This is her body, her pain, her silence. She couldn't move. She could only breathe. Then came darkness again. Sleep or blackout. She didn't know. The next day, she was moved to a private room. Softer light, pastel walls, electric bed. She overheard someone say, "She's lucky, has good connections." She didn't care. She wanted one thing, to get her body back and to understand where she was now. Richard came a few hours later, with flowers, white orchids, not her favorite, but expensive, architectural, scentless, the kind you see in hotel lobbies. "Doctors say you're stable," he said. "I can't feel my legs," she replied. He nodded. Again, didn't come close, didn't sit on the bed, didn't hold her hand, just stood there straight, neat, as if posing for a photo. The days became routine. Doctors said the injury was severe, but not hopeless. It all depended on recovery, rehab patience, will. Anna stayed quiet. She wasn't afraid of pain. She was afraid of emptiness. Every morning she tried to move her toes. At first, nothing. Then a faint twitch. One doctor said, "That's a good sign." Another said, "Could be just reflex." Richard listened, his face blank. No hope, no worry, just focus. He arranged everything. Specialist, therapist, new bed, custom wheelchair, even a ramp. Everything worked like a perfect blueprint. He was back in control, but only of the space, not of the relationship, not of himself, not of her. Anna felt it. He did everything right, but his actions held no pain, no tremble, just logistics. One night she woke up cold. The window was open. She couldn't get up to close it. She reached for her phone and heard a voice in the hallway. His voice, whispering to someone. Hospital's echo. "No, I don't know." "Yeah, she's stable, but it's all too much. I don't know what we are now. I'm not ready." Ringing in her ears. A snap. Something cracked inside Anna, like another beam giving way. She didn't listen further, didn't want to know who he was talking to. It didn't matter. What mattered, he was no longer with her, maybe never was. In the morning, he was perfect again. Coffee in a paper cup from her favorite bakery, now distant like childhood. He talked about a new recovery plan, more exercises, better nutrition, fast, confident, smiling, like pitching a project, like she was the investor. Anna nodded, silent. He didn't notice how she looked at him now. Not as a wife, as an observer. Studying his tone, pauses, gestures. Everything looked right, but it wasn't alive. He spoke of her like she was a patient, not someone he loved. And only when he turned to answer a call did she see it. His shoulders dropped. The mask slipped. He wasn't there, just on break between roles. A few days later, she was discharged. The house greeted her with sterile silence, smelled of wood, cleaning spray, and emptiness. Rooms once bright and open now felt like corridors. Every move required effort, every task a strategy. Richard had redesigned everything, removed rugs, widened doors, installed a lift in the bathroom, voice-activated lights. To make things easier, he said. But she felt it. The house no longer held them, just space he was trying to step away from. Intimacy had vanished, quietly, completely. He didn't touch her anymore, didn't glance at her when she changed, didn't pause on her hands, her face. Even when helping her into the wheelchair, he did it like a nurse, carefully, correctly, without love. At night, he stayed late, at work, with clients, or was just tired. She asked no questions, but she listened. Every night when he thought she was asleep, she heard him whispering to someone, in his headphones. Too soft, too alive, not with her. One morning after he left, she looked at his laptop. He'd left it open. The screen glowed. Anna slowly, guiltily moved closer. The email app was open. A message from a woman, name unknown, content clear. Last night was amazing. I think of you every night. I know you can't talk freely, but just your hi keeps me smiling all day. She didn't reply, didn't scroll, didn't read more. She just closed the lid, took a breath. It wasn't her body that hurt. It was the spot no scan could find, the spot called trust. That evening when he came home, she sat by the window, blanket over her legs. He kissed her forehead, as always, quick, formal. How was your day? Good, she answered. He didn't notice her voice had changed, softer, but firmer. He went to his office. 20 minutes later, buzz, vibration, door. I can't talk now. She's downstairs. Yeah, later. No, she suspects nothing. Anna stared into the dark window. Her reflection melted into the night. She was there, and not. And inside, something began to form. The night was moonless. The garden outside looked ink black. Even the neighbor's lights seemed gone. Anna lay still, listening to the house's invisible life. Creaks of an old man long ignored. She couldn't sleep, not from pain. She'd learned to live with that. But the emptiness under her ribs, where peace used to live, was spreading. Sometimes she wondered. Maybe she had changed. Maybe he hadn't left, just didn't know how to stay. Maybe his silence was fear too. But then she remembered the emails, the voice behind the door, and the one sentence that stuck like a splinter. She suspects nothing. That was the moment everything made sense. It wasn't the accident that broke them. It was the fact that he feared a broken wife in his perfect home. That morning he left early. Breakfast on a tray, a note. Busy day. See you tonight. Don't stress. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Funny. She held the note like unsigned divorce papers. His words were short, emotionless, like a client, a partner, not a man writing to the love of his life. She placed the note in a drawer, pulled the blanket over her legs, looked out at the morning, gray, indifferent, like the house. In the afternoon, a nurse came, helped with exercises, brushed her hair, made tea. Everything followed the schedule, like always. But Anna's eyes had changed. Calm but not numb. Cold. Determined. "You look different," the nurse said. "Calmer. Less tired?" Anna smiled. Number just finally understood something. That evening he came back, tired, irritated, walked in without knocking. No greeting, as if she were part of the furniture, as if everything was in the past, like that platform that once collapsed beneath her. She sat by the window, same chair, same pose, but something had shifted. "How are you?" he asked, walking by. "Better," she said. "Much better." He nodded, tossed his coat on a chair, went into his office. Door closed. Lock clicked. Anna sat in silence. She picked up the tablet she hadn't touched in weeks. The screen was dusty, but it worked. Slowly, carefully, with one hand, she opened the browser. Typed, "How to start a new life when you can't walk." Links appeared. Articles, stories, videos. She clicked the first one. Her fingers trembled. Not from fear, from clarity. For the first time in a long time, the choice was hers. She didn't know when, but soon she would speak, or act, or leave without standing. But she would never again be the woman waiting for explanations from someone who already decided everything without her. In the hallway, his phone rang. "Yes, tonight, I can make it." She didn't flinch. She closed her eyes and smiled. 6 months had passed. Half a year stretched like an eternity between rehab exercises, fake smiles, and a constant coldness in her chest. Not physical cold. She was used to that pain by now. Pain belonged to the body, but the cold had seeped into her soul. She had learned to be invisible. It hadn't happened all at once. At first, she tried to speak up, to participate, to matter, but her suggestions were gently adjusted. Her comments postponed for later. Then the invitation stopped altogether, first at the office, then at home. She no longer sat at the main table in the conference room. Her wheelchair quietly rolled into the corner, somewhere between the brochure stand and the coffee machine. At home, it was the same. Richard no longer asked what she thought about new projects. He used to bring her models, place them beside her, sit on the armrest and say, "Be honest, too much?" Now, nothing. Now he came home later than usual, carrying the scent of other women, subtle, expensive, not hers. She hadn't worn perfume since the fall, as if the body in the wheelchair had no right to be wanted. Sometimes he brought food from restaurants, left it in the fridge, said he'd been thinking of her, but it all sounded like a GPS voice, polite, detached. People around her said, "You're so strong. You carry yourself with such grace. He supports you so much. You two are an inspiration." Anna nodded, smiled, like a machine. Inside, nothing stirred, just rot, not from pain, but from resentment, from being reduced to a function. The image of the brave wife in a wheelchair, as if she no longer had the right to feel rage, doubt, jealousy, desire. As if her inner world had ended the day the beams on the 14th floor collapsed. The company used her photo in their annual report. She sat by a panoramic window, tablet in hand, staring into the distance. The caption read, "Motivation is when you keep creating, no matter what." Anna stared at the report for a long time. For the first time, she felt disgust, not at the chair, but at herself, for letting them use her body, her tragedy, as a branding tool. Richard loved these images. He spoke at forums, preached about new sensitivity in architecture, used their home as an example, said the project had changed after the accident. "I realized design isn't just about form, it's about possibility, it's about ethics." And always finished with, "My wife taught me to see differently." The audience applauded, journalists scribbled. Anna watched the live stream from home. Once she turned it off halfway through. He was telling the truth, just not the right truth. One evening, they went to a social event, as a couple, as the Carlsons. Same routine, her chair, his hand on the backrest, a four-toothed smile, camera, hors d'oeuvres. They sat her at the back table. For convenience, they said. behind a giant vase of gladioli that blocked the entire hall. She shared the table with inspiring veterans and a woman from an environmental fund. She sat there watching guests swirl around the room, champagne flashing in crystal, laughter, polished phrases. And then she saw him. Richard stood on the far side of the room, not alone, with her, with Justine. Anna didn't know her name yet, but she knew one thing. This wasn't a colleague, not a partner, not someone who kept distance. He stood close, too close. He laughed in a way he hadn't laughed with Anna in years. He placed his hand on the woman's back, softly, like it was familiar. Then lower, lower than it should have been. Anna didn't blink. Her fingers gripped the armrests. Her skin dampened. Something clenched in her chest, as if her heart were caught in a vice. He turned, smiled at her across the room, briefly, the way you smile at a stranger, then turned back, and she was left, among the flowers, among the phrases, among the lights that were far too bright to hide her pain. In the car, he drove in silence, then said, "You seem tense. Maybe we should skip the next few events?" She didn't answer, just stared out the window. At his reflection, he didn't look at her, didn't wait for a reply. But inside, a thought took shape. He's preparing the ground, erasing me, from work, from life, from memory. Days passed. She tried not to think, went back to her drafts, or something that looked like drafts, opened the tablet, scrolled through lines, searched for rhythm, found none. One day while Richard was away, a message came, anonymous, no name, no profile picture. "You deserve to know who he really is." Just one sentence, but more truthful than all his speeches. She read it 3 times, then closed her phone. Her breath hitched, hands shaking. A noise rose inside her, a dull roar, like a construction site. Her heart pounded in her temples. She rolled out to the terrace. The evening was cold, the air heavy, the sea black. She looked down at the water and felt something rise. Not pain, not grief, rage, cold, clear, without tears. She sat there for a long time, then slowly turned her chair back toward the house, into the glass villa that stopped being a home long ago. When Richard returned, she was in the office, sitting at the desk, on screen, photos, the ones from the annual report, his speech playing in a video, Justine in a guest folder on the cloud. He walked in, set down his suitcase, smiled. "How are you?" Anna looked at him. "Fine." He came closer. "I'm exhausted. Montreal was same as always. Too pretentious, too much. I missed you." "Really?" "Of course." She turned to the screen. "Then maybe you can explain, who's Justine?" He froze, and in that silence, for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like she was in control again. An anonymous number, no name, no greeting, just, "I'm sorry, but you need to know the truth about your husband." Beneath the text, an attachment, JPEG, 364 kilobytes. On the screen, just a photo, but not for her. At first it was only shadows. A man, a woman, the facade of a building. Then clarity sharpened, and something inside her cracked. Loud, sharp, like her spine once had. Richard, standing on the steps of a private clinic, black coat, lit by a street lamp's glow. His face, painfully familiar. He was looking at a woman, with that look. The one Anna once thought belonged only to her. The one that had made her heart race in the library, before their first trip. The look filled with admiration, tenderness, and something primal. Now it was aimed at someone else. She was young, long reddish hair, coat open. Richard's hand on hers, his left hand, on her stomach, her rounded, unmistakably pregnant stomach. Anna didn't recognize the woman's face, but Richard's expression. There is nothing more painful than recognizing what you don't want to see. She placed the tablet on her lap, stared at it. Her throat tightened, as if a stone had been lodged there. Breathing became hard, her stomach hollowed. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a sentence. No lawyers, no explanations, no appeal. He was cheating. He was expecting a child. And he was lying. Calmly, coldly, expertly. Every night, every morning. With words, with hands, with silence. Anna didn't cry. Tears come when pain is still warm. This was already cold. Final. She forwarded the photo to her email, made a folder, named it simply Evidence. Placed the image inside, labeled it 1. Like a case file, no emotion, just record keeping. Then deleted the message. Emptied the trash, closed the screen, and went still. He came home late, 10:43 p.m. His face wore a fresh, curated tiredness, like after a photo shoot. He entered as if nothing had happened, smelling of a perfume that didn't belong in their home, maybe hers. "Sorry," he said, not meeting her eyes. Breakfast with an investor ran long. We discussed horizon, new phase, lots of numbers. You'd have run in 2 minutes. He went to the kitchen, opened a bottle, poured himself a scotch, casual, practiced, like he was playing the role of the tired but respectful husband. Anna watched, silent, her eyes now different. They weren't searching for explanations. They saw. "How was your day?" he asked, sipping. "Like yours," Anna said evenly. "Full of surprises." He smirked without looking up. "Yeah, surprises are everything." She let a pause hang, then asked, calm, almost lazy, "And who's Justine?" He froze, just for a fraction of a second. The glass stopped midair. Ice clinked. He set it down carefully, too carefully. "Project manager," he said. "We're working on Horizon." "Why?" She picked up her phone, tapped the screen, turned it toward him. "Because is this what work meetings look like to you?" Richard stared. Long, silent, his face paled, then tightened. Then he laughed, low, joyless, like sealing a coffin before panic could start. "You're spying on me?" "Someone's watching you," Anna replied, and decided I should know. He stepped closer, eyes cold, shoulders tense, voice quiet, sharp. "You've made the worst possible assumption, Anna. That's your problem. You've become like this." "Like what?" she asked. Her voice held no tears, no fear, only glass. "Suspicious, obsessive, accusing. You're not the woman I married." He said it like a verdict, calm, almost indifferent. Anna didn't react right away. Her lips trembled, but she held them steady. "Did I change, or did you just find someone more convenient?" Richard didn't answer. He looked at her with something new. Not anger, not fear, boredom. "Your suspicion, your accusations, it's unhealthy. You're obsessed. I know it's hard for you, but you're acting like..." He paused, searching for a softer phrase, then waved it off. "Like a hysteric, a paranoid, all over a photo someone could have sent out of spite. You believe the first image you get, just to blame me. So you're saying that's not you in the photo?" "I'm saying you don't know the context," his voice tightened. "The woman's a colleague, complicated situation. She has a husband. We were just holding her pregnant belly outside a private clinic?" Richard's brow furrowed. He never tolerated being cornered. "That's absurd, Anna. She's married. Her husband is Greg. It's all clean." Anna's gaze didn't waver. "Greg's gay. I've seen them together. He doesn't hide it. Still want to keep telling stories?" He froze. His body leaned forward like he was about to attack, but stopped. After a few seconds, he turned to the window, jaw clenched. "Who told you?" "No one," Anna said. "I just stopped taking the sleeping pills you so kindly left on my nightstand every night. Started noticing things." His face sharpened. His voice dropped. "Don't start. You're not yourself. You're living in illusions. I'm doing my best. Do you think it's easy for me, seeing you in that chair every day, helping you, putting up with your outbursts, your hints? My chair is not an excuse to cheat," she cut in, "and not an excuse to wipe your feet on me. I'm not a victim. I'm not weak. I see, I hear, I breathe. And you're just a coward." Richard stepped closer, leaning in like he wanted to strike her with words, but stopped. He could feel he was losing control. Not of her, of himself. He turned, left the room, slamming the door. She heard him rush upstairs, rummaging in the closet. Then silence. Anna stayed in the darkened living room, phone screen off, feeling as if a nerve had been cut inside her. No pain, just emptiness. Later, she wheeled quietly into the bathroom. She knew he wouldn't come back to talk. He had his convenient version now. She was broken, so her words were filtered through emotional distortion. Anna sat on the edge of the bed, holding a small plastic bottle. It was almost weightless, matte white, no logo, a plain label. The drug's name was long and clinical, designed to sound convincing, but meaningless to anyone outside the medical field. No manufacturer, no dosage chart, just one capsule before bed. And a doctor's signature, illegible, scanned like a bank stamp. Once she never questioned it. She just took the pill. He would bring it with a glass of water, look her in the eye and say like a tired doctor who didn't want to explain, "Take it. You won't sleep without it." Or "Take it. You're tense." Or "Take it. I've worked it out for you." Sometimes he'd add, "Your body needs rest, Anna. So does your mind." And she would swallow it, obedient, without a fight. But not tonight. Her trust in his words was gone. Even the simple ones, even his tone. Her awareness had returned. She could feel the world around her, and herself in it. Now she began reading what she had once swallowed blindly. She picked up her tablet, searched the drug's name. At first, just neutral pages, medical directories, pharmacy sites, doctors' blogs. Then the real part, side effects, confusion, slowed reactions, impaired cognitive function, emotional detachment, intrusive thoughts, slurred speech, heightened anxiety upon withdrawal. She read it once, then twice, then a third time. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from clarity. She opened her nightstand drawer. Inside, 2 more bottles she'd been given at different times of day. One for muscle relaxation, one for mood stabilization. She'd heard those terms from Richard so often they sounded like spells. Muscle tone is the enemy of your recovery. No need for mental overload. You have to trust your body, and your body has to trust the medicine. She searched all 3 drug names. One had been removed from European and Canadian protocols. Another was tightly controlled for its high addiction risk. The third wasn't recommended for spinal injury patients because it caused exactly what she'd been experiencing for months. Forgetfulness, apathy, detachment. It wasn't the injury fogging her mind. It was the pills, dose after dose, day after day. She sat up straighter. Her body still felt heavy, but it wasn't weakness anymore. It was anger, dense, focused, with a target. She opened her messages and typed to the only person she trusted without question. Tamara, her physiotherapist. Not tied to Richard, not part of his circle, just someone unafraid to call things what they were. "Tamara, hi, it's Anna. Can you come over? Tonight." The reply was quick. "Of course. Is something wrong?" "I need you to look at my medication." A pause. "I think I'm being slowly shut down." "I'm on my way." Tamara arrived close to 8. No warning at the gate. She still knew the code from when Richard trusted her professionally. Anna was waiting in the kitchen. The pills were laid out on the table in neat rows, along with printed drug info from Health Canada and a stack of her old recovery journals, from before she got too tired to keep them. Tamara walked in, took off her coat. She was one of those women whose presence required no extra words. Steady, deliberate, unsentimental. Like an old-school doctor who knew truth lived in the body, and the body didn't lie. "Everything's here?" she asked. "All of it," Anna nodded. "Names, dosages, side effects. Some I couldn't even find in official registries." Tamara sat, took out her glasses and began examining the first bottle. She checked labels against online databases, making notes. The longer she worked, the less she spoke. Her face hardened. After 15 minutes, she set the last bottle down and exhaled. "Who prescribed this?" She tapped the label on Fetadrexin. "According to Richard, some neurologist at a private clinic. I've never seen him. All instructions came from Richard. He handled the doses, even set the water down for me. And you didn't sign any consent? He said it was all in his name, that I didn't need the paperwork. Tamara nodded slowly. Anna, this isn't treatment. This is a system of control, pharmacological control. In Canada, this could qualify as coercion with aggravating factors. Anna stayed silent. No shock, only a sharp, painful clarity. How long have you felt something was wrong? 6 months. First forgetfulness, then apathy. I stopped wanting anything, even thoughts. It felt like glass between me and the world. Life happened, but without me. Then I started losing sequence, plots of books, whether I'd actually called Claire or just thought about it. Richard always said it was part of recovery, and I believed him. This isn't your fault, Tamara said firmly. These drugs don't just blunt emotions, they blunt will. They take away the ability to resist. Anna put her hand over one of the bottles, and he knew. He knew exactly what he was doing. Yes, Tamara said. Very well. They sat in silence. Outside, house lights went out. A dog barked somewhere. The world beyond these walls felt like another dimension, one without betrayal, pills, manipulation. Anna looked at her reflection in the window. Thin, small, too light for this room. But inside, something had woken. Not strength, not yet, but permission to be herself. That's enough, Anna said quietly. No more. The first step is to stop taking them. Gradually, I'll write you a withdrawal plan. You'll have symptoms, insomnia, raw emotions, maybe irritability. But that's life coming back. I'm not afraid of pain, Anna said. I'm only afraid of sleeping again while someone calls it care. Tamara stood, checked the cabinet where Anna kept the rest of her meds, then closed it. He still thinks you're out, that you're his project. Comfortable, no threat. He can do whatever he wants. He's wrong, Anna said. Yes, Tamara nodded. He is. Before leaving, she hugged Anna, not with pity, not with comfort, but like an ally. At the door, she added, if he finds out you've stopped, he'll try to take control back. Through fear, guilt, pity. Don't give him the chance. I won't, Anna said. When the door closed, Anna went back to the cabinet, took one faded Drexin capsule, held it in her palm, small, translucent, harmless looking, then wheeled to the bathroom, crushed it into the sink. Watched the powder swirl and vanish. This wasn't just a pill. It was his power, and she had just started washing it away. The next morning, Richard came into the bedroom at 7:45, fresh shirt open at the collar, expensive cream on his skin. He looked rested as always, as if the night had been nothing more than a pause between two of his lives. Anna was already awake, sitting by the window, legs under a blanket, holding a cup of warm water. Plain, real water. How are you today, he asked, as if there had been no photo, no conversations, no quiet explosions. Better, she said without turning. He set the glass and white capsule on the nightstand. Same as always, same scene. Don't forget, he said, this is the relaxing one. I upped the dose a little. You seemed tense yesterday. Thank you, she said calmly. She didn't move, didn't touch it. He stood there a second longer, then left. His step carried a faint tension, like he was waiting for a question or a fight. Neither came. The day passed quietly. She stayed in the room writing, not blueprints, not yet, but diagrams, thoughts, timelines, mapping out control, events, dates, drugs, behaviors, phrases, reconstructing the structure of a building, not to move back in, but to find the way out. By evening, she had dressed carefully, applied light makeup, not for him, for herself. For the first time in a long time, she wanted to look alive. When Richard walked in with a bag from her favorite Italian place, she was already at the table. The table was set. Music played softly, an old record from their student days. The air smelled of candles. He froze in the doorway. Celebrating something? He asked, cautious smile. A beginning, Anna said. He set the bag down, sat opposite her. He seemed unsure, unused to this version of her, composed, deliberate. I'm glad to see you like this. Pills really are a miracle. I told you. Yes, she smiled. You did. He ate pasta, drank wine, talked about Horizon, a journalist meeting, a new facade concept. We might launch a line under your name, he said casually. Anna Carlson, Architecture After Pain, or something like that. Marketing's testing the idea. Inspiring, right? You wouldn't mind? Of course not. Sounds beautiful, she said evenly. I knew you'd understand. I do, she said softly. Better than you think. Later, when he slept, turned to the wall. Anna moved quietly, rolled to the cabinet, removed everything, kept one empty bottle. Into it, she placed the pills she hadn't taken, tightened the lid, hid it in a drawer with her documents, her first private archive. She opened her notebook and wrote one word, control, and beneath it, not his anymore. The night was starless. Fog hung over the ocean. The house slept. Even the hallway light didn't flick on as she passed. Anna turned off her phone, cleared her search history, opened a new browser tab. How to apply for legal independence from a guardian with limited capacity, Canada. She read the first page, waited for the second to load. No rush now. He could no longer put her to sleep with the right words. And while he breathed steadily beside her, she was waking up. Tamara left late. No goodbyes, just a hug, quiet, firm, like two people who now knew more about each other than they were supposed to. Anna, the night felt thick, not dark, thick, like cooling concrete. The air didn't move. The clock ticked, but time stood still. Reality itself seemed to pause, giving her space to see everything clearly for the first time. She didn't sleep, didn't want to, couldn't. Her mind, finally free from the chemical fog, worked with painful precision. Every image, every phrase she had once overlooked came rushing back, not in fragments, but in full scenes. She sat by the window. Outside, the ocean, black like ink. In the glass, her own reflection stared back. Not the fading, transparent woman Richard had been slowly erasing for years, but something solid, a shadow with weight, a blueprint. She had a name now, Justine Laurent, project manager, new hire, younger, pregnant, and not just a few weeks, months. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. Anna started counting backwards. Weeks, business trips, February, Toronto conference. He'd come back with a different perfume on his collar. She noticed but didn't ask. March, 2 days in Calgary for investor meetings. He hadn't answered her calls, claiming he'd been in presentations all day. He'd returned with a new shirt and that unmistakable scent. That night, he'd been unusually tender. Back then, she thought it was love. Now she knew it was guilt management. By morning, she was ready. Calm, no coffee, no plan yet, but intent. Tamara arrived as promised, straight from another patient. No white coat, just jeans and a windbreaker. No small talk, only a nod. I found an old Mazda for rent, plates from another province. No GPS, clean. Anna nodded back. Still have those binoculars? Top drawer by the window. Perfect, let's go. They parked across from one of the most expensive restaurants on the waterfront. Outside, the cold ocean wind, a gray sky, circling gulls. Inside the car, the heavy stretch of silence. Anna held the binoculars, lips pressed tight, hands gripping her chair's wheels. She didn't feel cold, only the pressure of truth pushing against the surface, ready to break through. Richard arrived 20 minutes later, not in the Tesla, not in a taxi, a black Mercedes, luxury, rented, not from their garage. Smart, Tamara murmured. Even here, he comes in disguise. He stepped out, coat, gloves, sunglasses, hair perfect. To anyone else, he looked flawless. But Anna recognized the spring in his step. He wasn't meeting a client. Minutes later, Justine appeared. Anna knew instantly. You don't mistake that kind of presence. A woman walking like celebration itself. A woman who already has. Her coat was open, her belly round. Her hand rested there with a tenderness November's cold couldn't hide. She glowed, like someone who hasn't yet been knocked to the ground, or knows she's the other and doesn't care. They took a corner table by the window. Anna watched Richard take her hand, place it on the table, lean in to say something. Both laughed, lightly, like nothing else existed, like the marriage didn't, like Anna never had. She breathed slowly. Count in, count out. Don't break, don't fall. Watch to the end. His hand moved to Justine's stomach, not by accident, with intent, with affection. And in that moment, everything crystallized. This wasn't just betrayal. He wanted a new family and had been building it for a long time. Anna gripped the binoculars until her knuckles went white. "That's it," she said evenly. "I've seen enough." Tamara didn't argue. She started the car. They left without waiting for the bill. The next morning, Anna woke early, not from an alarm or street noise, but from her own body. It felt like hers again. Her head was clear, her muscles ached, but in a living way. She sat by the window for a long time, watching morning light fight its way through the harbor fog. She didn't cry, didn't rage. This was something deeper, etched into bone, not pulsing in the skin. Tamara arrived at 10 with coffee and fresh baguettes, her way of preserving normalcy even when the world cracked apart. "How are you?" she asked, instantly sensing the change in Anna's face. Anna turned the tablet toward her, a zoomed-in photo from the waterfront. Richard and Justine, her hand on his chest, his hand on her belly. Tamara studied it, then exhaled quietly. "He didn't even try to hide," Anna nodded, "because he thought I'd never see, or never believe my eyes, or be too soft to do anything." Tamara just reached over and squeezed her fingers. "What do you want to do?" The answer came instantly. "I want to know everything." They made a list. 1. His roots. 2. His meetings. 3. Who is Justine? Where does she live? Who's around her? 4. Who else knows? 5. Any shared finances he's hiding? 6. What do his colleagues think? For the first time in months, Anna felt focus instead of pain, like stepping into a warm, lit room after freezing outside. 2 days later, they were back in the old car near the waterfront. Word from Richard's former assistant was that he had an important meeting that night. Anna suspected Justine, and she was right. The Mercedes appeared. Richard got out, wearing the same confident, public event posture. A few minutes later, Justine arrived. Coat open, belly prominent, owning it. Anna watched through the binoculars like an outsider observing a nature documentary. The hand on the back, the easy touch on her stomach. Nothing accidental, everything familiar. "It's like I never existed," Anna murmured, "like I'm a deleted file." Tamara's eyes hardened. "Then he made a very big mistake. The question is, what will you do with it?" Anna set the binoculars down. Her face was calm, almost marble. "First, I'll take him apart, quietly, like dismantling a condemned building." Back home, Richard didn't return that night. Claimed he was stuck with contractors. She didn't answer, deleted the message. The next morning, she went into his office. Everything in perfect order. Books by height, graphs, reports, 2 laptops. One familiar, one rarely touched. No password. A folder named Auxiliary. Inside, expenses, contracts, Justine's name. A rented apartment 20 minutes away. Pharmacy receipts, a private clinic, an ultrasound bill. His name is the payer. Anna froze. This wasn't a guess anymore. It was proof. She opened the top drawer. Beneath pens and paper, a black leather notebook she'd never seen. Inside, LO-life outside. Pages filled with quotes, expenses, speech notes about new ethics and personal happiness. In the middle, a printed photo. The same one she'd been sent anonymously, but from another angle. He'd known he was being photographed. Was he building a file on himself? Or on her? That night, when Richard noticed the lamp in his office was on and the book slightly shifted, he asked, "Were you in my office?" She looked up from her magazine. "Is that off limits now?" He didn't answer. She knew he felt it. The slow, precise dismantling. She didn't sleep. She read every page of that notebook. Some entries sounded like pretentious LinkedIn drafts, architecture as a metaphor for control. Others were sharper. "Oh, should be grateful. She has purpose now. I give her security. Once this is over, everything will be clean. Documents, finances, speech, new cycle. Oh, Olivia, the name appeared on the clinic bill. Was it Justine's real name or the name of the child? By morning, Anna was dressed, hair done. She sat across from Richard at breakfast. "You're up early," he said. "And you were home late," she replied. She let the silence sit, then said, "Olivia's a beautiful name. Not flashy, not common." He froze. The cup stopped halfway to his lips. His pupils shifted. "What?" "Just thinking about baby names," she said lightly. "People choose them for a reason, meaning, or impression." He put the cup down. "You're acting strange. Or maybe I'm just not acting predictable anymore." She smiled. "That's the thing about being seen as weak. People let their guard down. Then they're surprised." He left without answering. She finished her breakfast slowly. The control was shifting. That day she searched his car, found a second phone hidden in the armrest. No fingerprint lock, just a pin. Third try, she entered the date of her fall from the platform. Unlocked. One contact, L. Messages. Has he figured it out yet? Number. "But I'm ready. Date's set. How's A?" Foggy, just like she should be. "Pregnancy's perfect. With you here, it'll all work out. Soon we'll live normally." Anna read the thread again and again. This wasn't an affair. This was a plan, a transition, and she was no longer part of it. She took screenshots, sent them to herself and to the lawyer. She took screenshots, sent them to herself and to the lawyer Tamara had recommended 3 days earlier. Then she wrote a short message. No emotion, just facts. "I no longer have doubts. I'm ready. It's time to speak out." She hit send. She didn't cry, not even when she found the receipt for a penthouse, under Richard's name. Not theirs, just his. He hadn't even bothered to hide it under the company or dress it up as a business purchase. It was a clear investment in a life that had no place for her. Next to it was a contract from a private clinic. The ultrasound date, 24 weeks. On the image, a small caption, "Baby Carlson. Mother, Justine L." No shame, no secrecy. Just a declaration, like a nameplate on a door, showing exactly who belonged there and who didn't. Anna stared at the image of a child she would never have. Not because she didn't want one, not because she couldn't, but because someone had decided for her. Cut off the choice, erase the future like a builder tearing down a load-bearing wall, then pretending it was part of the plan. But she wasn't thinking about the baby, or Justine. She was thinking about herself. Richard, the man who once said, "You're my life," was now funding another life, with her money. And that wasn't enough for him. He hadn't just betrayed her, he was trying to erase her, to bleed her dry, not physically, but in every way, emotionally, professionally, legally. He wasn't a lover anymore. He was a virus in her system, quietly replacing everything from the inside. He had controlled her treatment, talked her out of returning to work, convinced her she was unstable, that her judgment couldn't be trusted, that she was too emotional to manage projects, that clients were nervous about her, that the team wasn't ready for her comeback. He'd done it all softly, smoothly, no threats. But every word had been like a drop of acid, leaving a mark. Anna was done being silent. She would no longer sit in the dark where he'd put her. She would no longer swallow the pills that stole her memory. She would no longer smile when she was ushered out of meetings so Richard could finish the presentation. With Tamara's help, she started to recover, truly recover. Not by his plan, not by his rules. Every week, secret rehabilitation. Tamara found her a neuro coach who worked quietly out of a private clinic. Every morning, breathing exercises, focus training, rebuilding control over her body. Her fingers were coming back. Her voice was stronger. Every movement was a small victory, a foothold in the wall she was climbing. Every morning, placebo pills instead of the real ones, sugar capsules, while she let him believe everything was the same, that he was still in control, that she was still weak, slow, calm. She became an actress in her own home, smiled when he brought her coffee, thanked him for taking care of her, said, "You're amazing for putting up with me." And she remembered, word for word. Every night, recordings on her phone, hidden in the bottom drawer of her nightstand. She began editing them, pulling together his exact phrases, the ones that used to sound like concern but now revealed their shape. You shouldn't sign documents on your own. I've already spoken to your lawyer. You should focus on rehab. Don't get distracted. Not care. Commands. Surgical. Precise. Her sister Sophie came back into her life. Not by accident. Richard had always pushed for distance. He didn't like Sophie. She was too direct, too disruptive. She asked questions. She didn't play by the rules, and she wasn't afraid of conflict. Sophie's too aggressive. She'll pressure you, he used to say. The truth? He was afraid. Afraid Sophie would see the cracks in his facade. Now Sophie was here, visiting once a week, sometimes staying over, bringing food, sharing news, making her laugh. But one night when Anna told her everything, the pills, Justine, the pregnancy, Sophie just sat there, silent for a long time, then said, "I didn't realize how alone you were, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving." Anna nodded. For the first time in a long while, she felt no shame, no sense of being a burden, no guilt for needing protection. She felt support, not as an obligation, but as strength, like a rope to hold on to if she started to fall again. Richard began to sense the change. He couldn't put it into words, but something in her was different. She answered faster, got lost less, started asking for documents she'd forgotten about long ago. Once he caught her reading a financial report. She didn't look up, just said, "Interesting how you move funds between accounts." "You'll explain later, right?" He laughed. But it was tight, uneasy, for the first time in a long time, off script. One day he brought her a gift, a slim gold bracelet engraved. "My strength is in you." She thanked him, then took it off immediately, put it in a drawer. "You don't like it?" he asked. "I just don't want to be tied to anything anymore," she replied. He went silent, and she knew. He was starting to be afraid. She didn't ask questions, didn't accuse, just took a step every day, then another and another. Sophie helped, physically and emotionally. Sometimes Tamara was there, sometimes the trainer, but most often she was alone, in an empty room, with a mirror and a voice in her head saying, "You're not an object anymore. You're not a project anymore. You're a person." At her next therapy session, she stood up for a few seconds, without help. Her legs trembled, her back burned with strain, but she was standing, like her buildings once stood, and she thought, "If I can stand, I can strike." Betrayal isn't about sex. It's not the touch of someone else's hands, stolen kisses, or warm nights in unfamiliar sheets. Betrayal is when the person you wake up next to is quietly planning your disappearance, calmly, strategically, like a building marked for demolition. First, the beams are removed, then the walls, and one day you collapse without even knowing when it all began. Anna sat in the kitchen holding that same black notebook again. Leather cover, worn edges, still smelling of something expensive yet cold. Inside, the pages were precise, dates underlined, money transfers noted, personal comments scribbled in the margins, sometimes initials, sometimes shortened names, but one name was always written in full, Justine, almost like a project name, almost like the title of a new showcase he was building. She photographed every page, methodical, cold. She kept copies in 3 places, one on a secure server in Europe, one on an old flash drive hidden inside a jar of flour on the top shelf, and one sent to Sophie, labeled just in case. This wasn't fear, it was preparation. She knew, in a system like this, mistakes aren't forgiven. Not forgotten dates, not vague wording, not sloppy emotions. Everything had to be exact, like architecture, like wiring, like a trap designed to close perfectly. Each day she felt herself growing stronger, not just physically, though her body betrayed her less often now, but mentally. Inside, a new frame was rising. The phrases she'd once heard, "You're too weak," "You need more time," "You're too emotional," no longer sounded like a verdict. They became background noise. And above that noise, a voice she had almost forgotten began to grow. Her own. Clear, sharp, certain. It carried from her diaphragm, through her fingers that no longer shook when she signed papers, through her spine that now held her both literally and metaphorically, and through her words, no longer apologizing for being alive. One afternoon, she walked into Richard's office. He was at a meeting, wouldn't be back for 2 hours. Everything was perfectly in place. Files lined up, pencils in their holder. His laptop asleep in the corner of the desk. She tried the password. The old one failed, the new one too. One after another, until it was clear. Her access was gone. Their trust was now an outdated operating system, no longer supported. She smiled, not with anger, just with recognition. It was expected, like the click of a lock behind you. That evening, she reviewed the camera footage. Tamara had helped install them when Anna started her recovery. One camera was hidden above the bookshelf, angled to catch not just actions, but intentions. Tuesday, 9:43 p.m., Richard enters, locks the door, sits, unlocks the drawer with a key, takes out the notebook. His phone lies on the desk. He talks to someone, too quietly to catch the words, but his expression says enough. He smiles warmly, softly, the way he used to look at Anna, 7, maybe 8 years ago. He laughs, says something short, then looks at a photo in the notebook. His face softens, almost tender. And in that moment, Anna understood. He had been living in another reality for a long time, one where she was no longer a character. He lied to her so easily it had become an art. He was a craftsman of his own truth, a master of facades. He'd built an entire world where Anna was nothing more than an old painting, taken down from the wall but not yet thrown away, stored in a closet for the rare times he needed to stage a family. Dusty, silent, harmless. The next day, she got an anonymous email. Inside a file, copies of correspondence between Richard and doctors. And this was the worst part. He had given them the instructions himself. Which pills to prescribe, which to cancel, how to explain the side effects, what to say about the need for stabilization. In one email, he wrote, "The patient should not regain full motor function before 6 months. Not physically, psychologically, she's not ready. Aggression possible. Recommend maintaining control." In another, he attached test results she had never seen, diagnoses no one had ever told her about. Mild cognitive disorientation, tendency toward emotional destabilization, high anxiety levels. He had turned her pain into an argument, her body into an excuse, her silence into a tool, all under the mask of love, of care, of marital duty. He had become her doctor, her prosecutor, and her judge, all at once, holding both prescriptions and verdicts in his hands. Anna turned off the screen, sat still for a long time, not thinking, not analyzing, just sitting. Then she stood, walked on unsteady legs to the bathroom, and looked in the mirror. A woman stared back, not a victim, not a patient, not a mistake. A woman whose year had been stolen. A woman who now knew exactly who had taken it and how to take it back. "You're not sick anymore," she said out loud. "You're angry, and you're alive." That night, she texted Sophie, "I need legal help, serious legal help." The reply came instantly, "On my way." When Richard walked into the bedroom the next morning, Anna was already dressed, not in her robe, but in her old gray suit he used to call too severe. He froze in the doorway. She met his eyes and said calmly, "We need to talk about your emails, with Dr. Levi and with Justine's lawyer." His face went pale. She stood, steady. "And please," she added, "don't lie to me. Not anymore." Psychological instability, paranoia, memory loss, all neatly typed into a medical report, printed on the letterhead of an elite clinic, signed by a doctor Anna had never met, filled with the same phrases Richard had been repeating to her for months. The report lay on the table in front of her. Anna didn't blink, didn't move, as if staring long enough would force the page to confess, make the letters fall apart and reveal the truth. This wasn't a medical document. It was a sentence, not just for her body, but for everything she called herself. "He wants guardianship," said Adam Chen, seated across from her. His voice was steady, measured, but beneath it was a sharp note no one could fake. Anger wrapped in legal language. "A legal one. He's going to claim you're incompetent." Anna slowly nodded. Her ears rang. "Is that even possible?" Adam leaned back in his chair. "If he gathers enough paperwork to prove your instability, yes. Especially if the doctors are willing to sign off on it. The court will believe them." She closed her eyes, and then the memories surfaced. Phrases that had sounded so ordinary at the time. Words she had mistaken for care. "You don't need to think about this. It's too much for you right now. Everything's under control. Don't stress. I'll sign it myself." Now those words came back like mines buried in her memory. She remembered how he discouraged her from attending board meetings at their architecture firm. Too much stress. "You need to focus on recovery." She remembered how he'd told her that her sister was toxic, too pushy, unsupportive, and how under the haze of medication, Anna had believed him. She had pulled away, cut ties with the one person who might have shaken her awake. Now she saw it clearly. Richard had been building a cage, not of walls but of paper, of records, reports, and stories. Stories he told not just to others, but to her. Stories where she was fragile, weak, emotional, potentially dangerous, to herself. "He's going to use this in the divorce?" she asked. "Not just use it. He could make it so you can't even file for divorce without his permission. Imagine having to get your guardian's consent to leave him." Anna stayed silent. Her body felt numb, but her mind was working like an overheated engine. Every gear locking into the next with razor-sharp precision. Everything she had suspected was true, and worse. She pulled out a printed copy of emails between Richard and Dr. Levi, lines underlined in red. "Patient prone to emotional destabilization. Recommend limiting social contacts. Medication management remains under husband's control." Anna clenched her fists. "Can we file a countersuit for falsifying medical documents?" "We can, but we'll need more proof. Witnesses, ideally. Doctors willing to testify. People in his circle who knew what he was doing." Richard still believed Anna was broken. In his mind, his wife was frozen in time. The day of the accident. A pale woman in a wheelchair, voice fading, body weak, harmless, predictable, manageable. He thought nothing had changed. He was wrong. Anna was building an army, quietly, patiently, strategically. First came Adam Chen, the lawyer. Young, sharp-featured, with a voice that made judges' eyes twitch. He didn't waste words. He dug for them. Then Sophie, her sister, the one Anna hadn't spoken to in years because it's better for your peace. Richard had always insisted Sophie was too aggressive, always in people's business, draining. Now Anna understood why. Sophie was exactly the kind of person who could set off an alarm in a house where everyone had learned to live with silence. Sophie returned to Anna's life with a laptop under her arm and one sentence. "I have access to everything he forgot to lock." And he forgot a lot. And then there was Tamara, the physiotherapist who had become not just a helper, but an ally. She had seen Anna's slow, steady return, the strengthening muscles, the sharper gaze, the fading tremor in her fingers, a poisoned, broken body becoming her own again. Now the team had a new member, Claire, a former colleague Richard had once fired for disloyalty. In truth, it was for asking too many dangerous questions, and Claire brought the first crack in his empire. "He's using the corporate fund to rent a penthouse," Claire told her, "and he's signing the documents under your name, with your electronic signature, since March. Did you know?" Anna raised an eyebrow. "I haven't touched the corporate signature since last year." Adam studied the papers. "That's a criminal offense. Forgery and abuse of position. You want to know the sentence? I'll tell you later. Right now, we build the case." Sophie tore through inboxes, bypassed protections, copied logs, built timelines. She was a quiet storm in a world of polite documents and signatures. Her methods weren't pretty, but they worked. "Did you know he plans to present Justine as the company's new partner at the gala?" Sophie asked, eyes still on the screen. Anna said nothing. Her heart pounded, not with pain, but with disgust. "Guess where it's going to be?" Claire cut in. "At your house. He said it would be easier for Anna to attend." For the first time in a long while, Anna laughed. It was quiet, bitter, almost metallic. "Generous. He wants to humiliate me in my own home, turn my life into a backdrop for his show." "Then let him," Sophie said. "Just not the way he planned." "What do you mean?" "Let him live in his little illusion. Let him think he's in control. But the ending, we'll write it." The next days were packed. Lawyers, secret therapy sessions, meetings with Claire and Sophie. The house kept its illusion of normalcy. Richard came and went, tossing off casual phrases, nodding with fake concern. One day he even brought her coffee. "With milk, just how you like it," he said, smiling. Anna took a sip. Set the cup on the windowsill. Watched the steam fade into the cool air. He didn't notice her posture had changed. Her movements had grown firmer. She asked for help less. He didn't see her walking alone at night, using furniture for support, testing herself. He didn't hear her breathing deeply again, not the shallow breaths of before, but full ones. He saw nothing, because he was blinded by his own certainty, and that was his greatest weakness. The gala was set for Saturday. Claire had tracked the guest list: architects, journalists, old clients, people who knew Richard and who once admired their partnership. Some had even been at their wedding. "Ready?" Adam asked the day of the event. "More than ever," Anna said. She wore a dark blue dress, the one he'd once called too formal. Her hair was pulled into a sleek bun, makeup subtle, precise, no tears, no trace of pain. When the guests arrived, she sat by the fireplace. Like the hostess she still was, as if nothing had changed, but everything had. Justine appeared an hour in, long beige gown, rounded belly, glowing eyes, her arm hooked through Richard's. They walked in as a couple, no hiding, no shame. Anna stood, without help. The room went silent. "Good evening," she said. "Thank you for coming. I hope you'll enjoy our little surprise at the end of the night." Richard froze. Justine stared at her like she was seeing a ghost. Sophie stood at the DJ booth. She nodded to Anna. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sophie's voice came over the speakers, "we have a short video presentation for you. The story of one project, titled How to Break a Woman and Miss the Moment She Starts Rebuilding." On the screen, emails, audio recordings, copies of medical reports, surveillance footage, documents with forged signatures, and Richard's voice, cold and certain. "She won't wake up." "I've covered everything." The guests were silent. Some looked away. Others began recording on their phones. Adam stepped forward and handed Richard a court summons. "You're being charged with document forgery, unlawful medical interference, and attempted involuntary guardianship over a competent adult." Anna met his eyes. Richard opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "You were wrong about one thing," she said softly. "I'm not broken." Late that night, Sophie handed Anna a tablet. "We found something in his personal safe, not just papers, a recording. He kept an audio diary, and the last entry, 'It's not about you.'" Anna pressed play. Richard's voice, "If things don't go to plan, I have a backup. She'll never know. No one will know. Only me and Justine's father." Anna stood before the bedroom mirror, looking at the reflection of a woman who no longer hid. The dark blue dress fit like armor, not a mask, but a reminder. She was back, she existed, and she would never be silent again. It was the same dress she'd worn years ago when she won her architecture award. Back then, she'd stood on stage holding a glass trophy, hearing Richard say with unrestrained pride, "You look like someone who can build cities." The irony wasn't lost on her. Now she wasn't building a city, she was constructing an ending, or rather demolishing everything Richard had spent years building. His image as the devoted husband, the caring partner, the flawless professional. And it would all collapse, not with rage, not with scandal, but with precision, accuracy, evidence. The house buzzed with preparations. Caterers set glasses on white-draped tables. Lighting crews adjusted spotlights. Sound techs tested microphones. Florists hurried past with towering arrangements. Richard moved through it all like a conductor, giving orders, smiling, tweaking details. Anna watched him from the shadows, her wheelchair hidden behind a wall of white calla lilies and eucalyptus. He didn't see her. He never noticed what he didn't deem important. "Make sure she's visible, but not in the center," he told an assistant, pointing toward a table in the far corner. He wanted her as background, a quiet shadow in the corner, not stealing focus from his triumph. He truly believed he had everything under control, that this night would be his crowning victory. The event was flawless. Oysters on ice, champagne flowing, a string quartet in the corner. Old friends, investors, architects, media representatives, everyone who had once admired Richard and Anna as a power couple, as visionaries of Vancouver's new architectural wave, were here. He waited for the climax. His speech was written, polished by the PR team, rehearsed in front of the mirror. He began with his usual charm. "Tonight, we are not just celebrating our company. We are celebrating the future, a new chapter, new leadership." He spoke about innovation, about mission, about trust in the people who walk beside you. And then, with a theatrical pause, he said, "Allow me to introduce our creative director and the mother of my future child, Justine Laurent." Applause, hesitant. Some guests turned toward Anna. Some whispered. Some were already recording. Richard beamed. He wrapped his arm around Justine, rested his hand on her belly. The air in the room thickened. And then, it began. Anna turned her wheelchair toward the stage. Slowly, she moved forward. People stepped aside. Someone tried to politely block her path. She kept going, eyes fixed ahead. Steady, no anger, only cold resolve. "Anna, maybe this isn't the..." Richard began, his face paling. She cut him off. "I'd like to say a few words, if you don't mind." The room stilled. She stood, slowly, without help. First pushing off the armrest, then straining her hips and back. Her knees trembled, but she stood. A murmur rippled through the crowd. A few gasps, then applause. Anna took the microphone. "I stand here not as the betrayed wife, not as the woman you've grown used to seeing in a wheelchair. I stand here as someone who was targeted for destruction, chemically, legally, financially, and publicly." Richard straightened, his face draining of color. He opened his mouth, but Anna continued. "My husband didn't just cheat on me. He controlled my medication. He signed documents in my name. He stole from our company's fund. He used my name, my signature, my illness." Behind her, the screen lit up. Documents, emails, medical charts, text messages, images of checks, audio recordings. Richard's voice filled the hall. "She won't wake up. I've covered everything." Anna didn't blink. She gripped the microphone like a syringe of truth injecting into a vein of lies. "These materials have already been submitted to the tax office, the prosecutor's office, the medical board, and the guardianship commission. Some of you may be called as witnesses." The room was silent. Some guests slipped out. Others kept filming. A few stood frozen, fists clenched. Anna stepped forward. "I'm not vengeful. I'm an architect, and I know how to build. Tonight, I built the truth." At that moment, the ballroom doors swung open. Two men in dark suits stepped inside, IDs in hand. "Mr. Carlson," one of them said, "you need to come with us." Richard tried to smile, mumbled something incoherent, then looked at Anna. She stood there calm, silent, without triumph, without rage, just standing. The next morning, with the house quiet, Anna received an email from Adam. "We found a will." Richard left everything to someone else, but not to Justine. She froze. To whom? The reply came instantly. A woman named Marion Duval, France, Strasbourg. Anna frowned. She had never heard the name before. Richard didn't shout as they led him away. He tried to speak, his lips moving, words tumbling out, pushed by desperation. "It's a lie! She's insane! Everything she says is twisted!" But the room had already fallen silent, and the silence was dangerous. Not because no one believed him, but because they did. The eyes that had once shown polite sympathy now held something else entirely. Shock, disbelief, regret. Some guests looked away. Others kept filming. No one stepped forward. No one stood between him and the men who came for him. He was no longer directing the scene, no longer dictating the script. He hadn't just lost control. He'd lost his reality. Anna stood at the center of the room, under the stage lights. No wheelchair, no help. Just a cane, yes, but on her own, proud, steady, unshakable. It wasn't a gesture, it was a statement. Every movement, every shift of her weight onto the cane, every deep breath, it wasn't victory over pain. It was victory over the man who had convinced her there should be no pain at all, because everything is under control. People looked at her, and they no longer saw who she used to be. Not Richard Carlson's wife, not the co-founder of their firm. They saw a woman who stood, after everything, against everything. Justine stood off to the side. Her hands trembled, lips pale. She couldn't take her eyes off Anna. I didn't know, she whispered. Anna turned, silent for a moment, meeting the gaze of the woman who had been part of the betrayal, but also a victim of manipulation. He told me that you were mentally unstable? Anna finished calmly. He's good at that. Very good. Justine nodded, almost childlike in her confusion. What will you do now? Her voice cracked. She rested a hand on her stomach. Anna glanced at the small curve there, without anger, without contempt, only quiet, deep understanding. Raise your child however you want, Anna said. That's not my war. I've already won mine. She turned away. Those nearby stepped aside, not out of politeness, but respect. Anna walked past them, slowly leaning on the cane, but every step up the staircase felt like a final chord in a symphony. The room stayed silent. Later that night, when the house was empty, when the last cars had left the driveway and the path lights dimmed into night mode, Anna sat in her room, not in the wheelchair, but curled up on the couch like she had in her younger years. The dress still smelled faintly of the evening's tension. Shoes on the floor, bracelet off, hair down, tired but unbroken. Tamara came in without knocking. She knew she could. In her hands, 2 cups of hot green tea with mint and lemon, just the way Anna liked it. You were incredible, Tamara said, sitting beside her. Anna smiled faintly. I just told the truth. They drank in silence, not because there was nothing to say, but because silence had suddenly become precious. Not heavy, not threatening, safe. You know, Anna said after a while, when I was paralyzed, I kept thinking, this is forever. As if everything before had been cut off, as if I wasn't me anymore. But then I realized, worse than a body that can't move is a mind you're not allowed to use. Tamara listened without interrupting. And today, when I stood up, it wasn't about my legs or my muscles. It was about my voice, about finally speaking without asking permission. Tamara nodded. This isn't over, she said quietly. I know. This is just the first act. Anna set her cup down, looked at her hands. They no longer trembled. Now everything will start to change, she said. 3 days passed. For the first time in months, Anna slept with the window open. She wasn't afraid of the cold or the sounds outside. No longer imagined a trap in every creak. Her body still hurt, but now the pain was a signal, not a punishment. It felt like waking up. Sophie sorted the documents, kept backups, filed everything into cloud archives. Adam reached out to the press. Claire quit her agency to join Anna's side. They weren't afraid of being noticed anymore. They wanted to be seen. Tamara kept overseeing her recovery. Anna trained twice a day. No excuses, no later. The remnants of her old life vanished from the house. The coffee table no longer held project portfolios Richard used to call ours. His suits, watches, and business cards were gone from the bedroom. Only a faint trace of his cologne lingered in the air. Not a presence anymore, just a ghost. One morning, Anna stepped out onto the terrace, alone, without the cane. She stood at the railing, breathing in the crisp air, feeling her lungs fill with cold. She thought she might cry in that moment, but no, not a single tear, only peace. And then the phone rang. "Mrs. Carlson, we have some questions for you. You are not the only woman linked to cases involving Mr. Carlson." Anna froze. "I'm listening. We have reason to believe this wasn't the first time, and you weren't the only one." A pause. "He manipulated the medical treatment of other women, with at least one of them. The outcome was tragic." A month later, Richard Carlson was under investigation. Financial fraud, medical manipulation, abuse of guardianship. The life he had spent years building was collapsing, brick by brick. Everything he had created was now evidence against him. Each day, more experts joined the case. Investigators, prosecutors, auditors. Anna no longer followed every headline. But one day when his name flashed on the screen with the words, "Carlson could face up to 8 years," she simply nodded. No relief, no gloating. Just a fact. Justine had left for Vermont to stay with her sister, pregnant, shaken, but no longer naive. The last thing she said to Anna before leaving was, "I thought love was when someone believes in you. Turns out love is when someone doesn't lie to you." Anna didn't judge her. They had both been part of the same scheme. One at the center, the other collateral damage. Now Anna was working again, living again, breathing again. Her studio, now renamed Phoenix, had opened in a bright loft by the water. White walls, wooden beams, warm light. Not a single detail from the past. Everything was new. She had abandoned the heavy marble and glass facades that made it so easy to hide behind walls. Her new projects were open spaces, soft shapes, organic materials, air, light, acceptance. The project, also called PHOENIX, won a grant from the Architectural Association of British Columbia. It was noticed, not because of a famous name behind it, but because it carried pain transformed into structure. Walls where every line was therapy, every curve, support. Phoenix became a rehabilitation center for people with spinal injuries, but there wasn't a single hint of a hospital inside. The spaces Anna designed inspired dignity, not pity. There were no wards, only studios. No corridors, only galleries. No patients, only people in recovery. "Here, no one is a patient," she told reporters. "Here, everyone is the architect of their own strength." Tamara became director of physical rehabilitation. Her office stood at the heart of the main gallery, next to the art therapy space. She smiled more now, sometimes even laughed. She didn't just teach techniques, she taught respect. How to meet someone eye to eye, not from above. Sophie took charge of digital security and infrastructure. She built a secure network, a patient monitoring system, and led a project to create adaptive wheelchairs. She worked late into the night. "I didn't know how much I needed this," she told Anna. "Sister, you didn't just save yourself." Claire, Anna's former colleague, joined as project coordinator. Her energy was contagious. She led the first tour for a European delegation, and she was the first to say, "Phoenix isn't just a building. It's an idea, a response to those who wanted us silent." Anna sat at her work table again, fingers tracing paper, drawing clean lines. At night, she no longer feared the silence. She welcomed it, listened to it, filled a notebook as she used to, back before everything. But now the sketches weren't just of buildings, they were sketches of life. She taught young architects, gave lectures, led workshops. One student told her, "You're not just an architect, you're a conductor. Only you conduct the future." For the first time in years, she smiled and agreed. At the press conference for the official opening of Phoenix, someone asked, "What do you feel toward your ex-husband?" The room went still, lights, cameras. Anna looked straight into the lens. She smiled, calm, measured. "Gratitude," she said. Camera flashes, a gasp from somewhere in the crowd. "He didn't destroy me. He made me remember who I am. He gave me the map. He just didn't know I read blueprints better than anyone. I built my new life from the wreckage of his betrayal." She glanced at Sophie, at Tamara, at Claire standing just off to the side. We all build, she continued, even when others try to tear us down, even when we think we can't. The only thing that matters is remembering how to hold the pencil and not being afraid to start the drawing again. She rose, took her cane, and left the stage. Not as a victim, but as a woman underestimated, a survivor who built something greater. Victor, no one called him Richard anymore, sat in his lawyer's office. No glass desks, no grand schemes, just stacks of papers. The plea deal is your only chance, the lawyer said flatly. Everyone has turned on you, even your mistress. A pause. Even your former partner. Victor stayed silent, staring at the desk. On it lay a fresh newspaper. Front page. Anna Carlson opens Phoenix, a symbol of survival and justice. He crushed the paper in his fist. His name in the headline was the only thing still tying him to the world. A world that no longer belonged to him, but it was already too late. The opening of the new center came without pomp or spectacle. No ribbon cutting, no sponsor speeches, no champagne receptions. Just music. Live. A string quartet playing against wooden walls steeped in sunlight and history. Simple words. No marketing slogans. No theatrics. Anna stepped forward, slowly. No wheelchair. No aides by her side. Only her cane and her resolve. The wind caught the folds of her deep navy coat. On her chest, a small brooch in the shape of a rising phoenix. She stood in the center of the open hall, vast, full of light, with exposed beams overhead and warm wood underfoot. "Welcome to Phoenix," she began. Her voice was calm, steady, not loud but certain. "This is not a place for pity. It's not about trauma. It's about recovery, about rights, about will. About taking your life back, even if someone tried to steal it from you." The guests weren't politicians or donors. They were people, patients, families, architects, doctors, volunteers. People who knew what it meant to fall and to stand again. Tamara stood beside her, pride in her eyes. Not just for the project, for Anna, for the woman who had endured and risen. In the front row sat Sophie in a steel gray suit. Quiet but unshakable. Armor in case anyone dared to wound again. Claire smiled. She had taken on the chaos of organizing everything, so Anna had only one task: to simply be herself. When the ceremony ended, a young journalist from a European magazine approached Anna, notebook in hand. "That was deeply personal," he said. "Are you ready for people to call this revenge?" Anna met his gaze, unblinking. "People can call it whatever they want. For me, it's the truth. And if the truth sounds like revenge, maybe someone has been lying for too long." She no longer lived in fear. Her new apartment had no surveillance system, no codes, only windows overlooking the bay and books she had chosen herself. Not the ones Richard gave her so she could seem profound. Every morning began the same. Jasmine tea, light stretches, emails, and always work. Phoenix projects were expanding. New requests, new cities. Her approach to rehabilitation spaces was becoming a standard. Her lectures were quoted. She was invited to judge international competitions. But what mattered most were the letters, not from architects, but from women, men, parents of children with injuries. "I had lost myself, but after your speech, I've started finding my way back. I thought this was the end. Now I believe it's the beginning. You proved a new life can be built. I'm trying." Anna kept these letters in a separate box. No names, just words. A reminder, her pain had become someone else's hope. She no longer replayed the days Richard had drugged her or the false diagnoses bought by him. She no longer counted steps to the bathroom. She no longer waited for permission to move. Now she was movement. Every word, a challenge. Every action, a declaration. Richard? He was no longer Richard. In the press, he was Carlson, a defendant, a case file. He was still fighting. Lawyers, press releases, interviews where he tried to tell his side. She had problems, I tried to help. It was complicated, not black and white. I never wished her harm, but no one was listening anymore, because the truth had already been spoken. by the woman he thought was weak, spoken in the light, in her voice, in the facts. Now no one was waiting for him. He sat in a holding room. No suit, no watch. Only his hands fidgeting with his sleeve. On the table in front of him lay a fresh newspaper. On the cover, Anna dressed in white, with her cane, smiling. Headline, Anna Carlson in Phoenix, the place where life begins. He crushed the paper in his fists, tearing it diagonally, as if he could destroy her the way he once tried before. But it was far too late. Anna stepped out onto the center's terrace. Evening, warm air scented with pine. Behind her stood the building she had created. Before her, a city that was finally learning to listen to women. Tamara joined her, silently handing over a cup. "You think we've changed anything?" Anna asked. "We? No," Tamara replied. You built a guillotine, out of words, facts, and strength." Anna smiled, not with triumph, but with peace. "Number, I just built the platform. The heads. They fall on their own, if the truth is loud enough." They sat together in silence, listening to the sound of patients laughing below. "Is this your home now?" Tamara asked. Anna nodded. "This is my world now." In the Phoenix archive, in a locked room, there's a single folder. Label, Carlson, the story. Inside, copies of documents, correspondence, audio, photos. Everything that had formed the basis of his exposure. Beside it, another folder. No name, only one sentence written on the cover. "When a victim builds the guillotine, she's no longer a victim. She's the architect of the end." She sat in the corner of the room, in a wheelchair hidden in the shadows. Everyone thought she had given up. He stood on stage, glowing, holding his pregnant mistress like he'd won. But he had no idea what she was building. And when she stood up, everything he had came crashing down.